Okay, as you can see, uh, the Americas have been completely emptied of countries. There's nothing left over here. Just the natural environment and animals. So no people. I guess there still might be infrastructure like buildings and stuff, but every person here is also gone. So yeah, we're gonna look at what would happen if this happened. So maybe unsurprisingly, first thing that happens is Britain starts colonizing back some of this. Colonizing might not be the right term because, uh, well, it's 2025, so it's probably more like just trying to reclaim this land, so to maybe reestablish it into America. But yeah, regardless, that starts happening. We also see some other European countries doing the same. Spain lands over here in their old land of Florida, and France goes over in this like Carolina region, which isn't really where they had their claims. It was like here, but uh, that's too hard. Anyway, so obviously these three countries, Spain, France, and UK, are working together, but old Russia comes in, and they start taking Alaska back because this used to be theirs. And I'm sure they're pretty happy about how much easy access they have over here to the Americas. But anyway, Denmark through Greenland starts taking these islands. There's not really a way to show the border, but just know it's probably like here. When I say taking, they probably just have like 5 people walk through, or not even walks through, sail through here and say that this is theirs. France makes another landing where they actually did have land in Quebec. I see the British colony thing, I'm just going to call them colonies, gets much bigger and takes up some of Canada too. Same goes with these two from France and Spain. All the way like this. Spain also tries to take some of Mexico because, they are, I believe, the country with the most Spanish speakers in the world. So that would make sense because it's probably going to be, best for Spain to take Spanish place. Anyway, Russia goes ahead and moves off very far in, much further than they went when they were the Russian Empire. They start to reach down almost all the way to Vancouver. Well, I don't know where Vancouver is, but I think that's almost it. Anyway, so a lot of these African countries have tried to take this land, but it hasn't gone too well because none of these guys are really that strong. The only one that has been successful is South Africa. They take this chunk. But Morocco is going to go ahead and send their fleet down here. And they're going to take this piece of land, which is very interesting. Morocco having a colonial empire. We're also going to see these 4 countries, China and North Korea on one side, and South Korea and Japan on the other. They're all going to go after California. But once their ships are near California, they get into a skirmish. And eventually the Chinese and North Korean ones come out on top, and so they take this piece of California. But yeah, it's not going to go too well over here in Asia. So we see China and North Korea going after South Korea and Japan. And Taiwan and Hong Kong. Anyway, the combined Chinese and North Korean troops pretty easily start to roll through South Korea and get into some naval battles with Japan, but eventually land here and start storming up the island. They also take Taiwan and Hong Kong. And, yeah. Japan is... I kind of skimmed over that war. It would probably take like a year or two, but eventually China is just too much for them, so yeah. North Korea is going to be annexing South Korea, and Japan is going to stay independent, but they are now going to have a new government, which is, pro-Chinese. And Taiwan and Hong Kong are fully annexed into China as well. With that, though, we see something kind of interesting happen. A ship full of Japanese and South Korean refugees lands over here in the Seattle kind of area. So now that's... Technically, you could say that this is Japan now. But anyway. We now see a lot of other countries are starting to get over here. The sailboats and planes have had enough time. So we see an Australian colony over here. Up here, the borders continue to get bigger. Well, the borders are getting bigger, but the colonies are. I'm gonna have to redraw them again, but that's okay. France, Spain, and Britain are still working together and, making agreements on who gets what land. So, the new colonies, Spain is gonna be pretty big. Gonna be all the way like this. The UK gets a lot of France's because this is kind of seen as being the new United States. So they want Washington D.C. But France is gonna get all of this. Very nice border, I know. And they also are going to be taking all of Quebec. The Russian colony is, of course, going to expand some more. Although by this point, it's kind of getting pretty difficult for them to do so. Well, don't ask. This is not... he can be here. And so, Russia continues expanding down. They take, all of this, most of northern Canada, and just all this northern wilderness. And Chinese people take Hawaii. These Asian ones are going to also expand. We see the Chinese colony pretty much become California, but bigger, and Japan plus South Korea, because this is the union of South Korea and Japan, just not very far away from their original territory, is kind of looking like Cascadia, I guess. We see Portugal make a landing over here in Brazil and take most of this. And then Australia and South Africa's colonies are going to get pretty big. South Africa gets most of the southern land, and Australia gets this piece in the west. We see how India make their journey all the way across here, as we now have an Indian colony down here. And I'm going to label these now because it's very hard to know which one's which, because they're all, completely new. So India, Portugal. I'm sure these aren't the actual, shortened versions, but we're going to pretend they are. So, yeah. And yeah, no, it's not actually me. But yeah, this is what it looks like now. With the labels. Oh, except for Morocco. And now it's looking pretty. The Americas, I mean, are starting to look pretty filled in. Only this land remains because Spain would have taken the Caribbean by now. So, the European countries, the three that are making land gains over here, aided by the entire rest of Europe, other than like Belarus and Russia, obviously, are going to work together to make one new unified thing. And this is going to be so that they can kind of redivide it back up into the US, Canada, and Mexico, and Central America. And it is going to look, very big. So all these lands are united, and then they take a lot more, and the border is pushed out very far. They reach all the way over here to the Pacific Ocean. They're gonna, actually, this might just be them. And then they take this. So this is Europe's. But they're going to go ahead and divide it back up. Only issue is that, demographics are completely different now. There is the English majority is like here. So this is so we have this thing, which is the English majority, I mean, and it is supposed to be the new U.S., but there's a lot of Spanish people living here now, so Mexico is going to become more like the Gulf of Mexico, and they're also going to get all of Central America and the Caribbean. And France is going to get most of Canada. I mean, most of Canada is now going to be this big French-speaking country. They have some of Wisconsin, too. And this, which remains, is now the U.S. So, very interesting. After that's done, the Europeans work together to take back as much of Brazil as they can to make that into a thing. They also cooperate with Australia because they are, allies very closely. So with that, they're going to reclaim all of South America and divide it back up, of course, with their new ethnicities. Like this will be I guess this is Argentina. Well, like Chile, really. So, there. Let me see. Brazil. And then right down here, with the help of Spain, they managed to make this into Colombia and this into Peru. This Moroccan thing rebels and gets independence, so there's now this weird North African, Arabic, Muslim, I think Morocco's Muslim, country over here. Let's call it Guyana. And so, now the entire Americas have been filled up again. But, it's very different looking from how it was before. Japan is, and obviously all these countries are very weak because they have very low populations. But the issue is Japan, wants to leave this be, but then they're not going to exist. So they kind of have to just stay here. But, well, China's not going to like that. So, yeah. And doing that pretty much, all of this, goes to war with them. But, it's not great because we see Russia now join in on this war. They have all of their claims up here. And pretty much all of Europe is going to get involved on this too. So we have Denmark, up here, and then the Caribbean. Most of South America is on the blue team, so it's Chile. course, we have Europe. It's just going to be the EU, so I won't really bother to color this in properly. Obviously, this isn't really what the EU and, well, the EU and NATO combined. This isn't really what that looks like, but just pretend it does and won't be important, so just shh. But anyway, we now see this very interesting war break out. I mean, it's not very original. There still are a couple colonies left. One of them is Morocco. Them and their colony are going to be going in on this war on the side of the red team. See the new Japan here. And finally, we see a yellow team pop up, being India. And they managed to convince South Africa to join in on this too. So this is looking very, very interesting. So pretty quickly, Europe focuses in on Morocco, and I mean, yeah. But over here, now that they're at full-blown war, Russia and Belarus are able to make much bigger, invasions into Ukraine, pretty easily rolling through this half. Especially since they're aided by China. Speaking of which, they are invading India. It's going pretty well because they have Pakistan's help. I don't really know what Pakistan and China's relations are. I don't think they're allies, but they could be. But either way, I know they both don't like India, so yeah. Over here in the actual Americas, since, well, the Americas are much more dominated by Europe, they are going to manage to kick out the Chinese out of California. At least they still have Hawaii. However, it's not going as well against Russia. It's pretty much stalemated, but Russia has actually made some advancements into, like, Japan and the new U.S. The Morocco and their colony both get knocked out pretty easily. But these southern yellow team colonies are actually doing decent. And they push up like this. India kind of gets their bearings together here. They kick out Pakistan and more or less stalemate China. Although the front line is still like this, just stalled. Over here in Europe, it's not going great for NATO / the EU, as Russia and China and New Japan all file in here and destroy these guys. Back over here in the Americas, though, Europe is definitely starting to win over here. They kick Russia almost all the way into just coldness. It's just this little southern area down here, I guess. I'm not sure. That's probably also freezing cold, though. Over here, they actually negotiate a deal with the yellow team. And basically, these colonies are going to get a little bit more land, but they are going to be joining in on the blue team's side. Also, I just realized South Africa themselves is not colored in. But yeah, like I said, these guys are going to be getting some more land. So let's just redraw the borders completely. It's now going to be looking something like this. I think the Indian colony is probably more Brazil than Brazil is, but oh well. But with that, the yellow team is now on the side of the blue team. And now they are unified against Russia and China. Not Mongolia. Why is it doing that? Hello? I don't know why. Okay, I guess Mongolia's on this war now. Anyway, over here, NATO and the EU, whatever you want to call them, have pushed back pretty decently against Russian forces. Still, well, hold on, Kaliningrad's Russia. They still have some territory in Poland, as well as most of Ukraine controlled, but not all of it. They also managed to convince these guys to join in. These two, I should say. Armenia chooses to stay neutral, because I don't really think they would like to join either team. Maybe, but I don't think so. So, but yeah, they start making an advancement into Russia from the Caucasus region. India over here is starting to kind of get collapsed, though. And get pushed all the way back to here. Japan, their colony, is now able to rejoin the US, so that's good for them. And, well, the war is getting kind of stalematey now. So, after a couple more years of very little violence, or maybe not a couple more years, but like a couple months of the war gradually slowing down, eventually a peace agreement is going to be made, which we're going to look at. Okay. Just like that. So, first of all, Russia is going to be giving up this claim to Canada. The Chinese are going to be giving this former American land back to the United States, as well as Hawaii. This weird one is handed back over to Brazil. The Indian and South African colonies both pretty quickly rebel because, like I said, it's 2025. We know colonies aren't really a good thing. So obviously they aren't going to last for too long. The South African one simply becomes Argentina. This is a very strange looking Chile, but still. As for the Indian one, though, they're going to unite with Brazil to form more like actual Brazil. I'm sure there's going to be some more things, like maybe Venezuela is made independent. Central America. Over here in the, where the war was happening, Japan and Korea are still under their normal governments, but Pakistan and India are both going to not Pakistan and India. Pakistan and China are both going to be getting good chunks out of India. Pakistan gets this kind of Indus River Valley area, as well as all of their claims over Kashmir, and I'm assuming more. Get this. And China is going to be getting a lot of lands that border India. Well, are Indian, but, are close to the border. Which includes all of this thing. And most of this northern chunk. Bhutan is now fully enclosed in China. This whole border over here looks really terrible. It would look a lot better if these three countries were just part of China. Or if these two were Indian and this one was Chinese, but either one. I know the names of them. It's Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan. I don't know, I was calling them these countries. Over here, though, we're going to see a Baltic country be formed, including Kaliningrad, and it's going to be pro-Russian government. It's pretty much going to be like Belarus 2.0. And essentially the same thing happens in Ukraine, although Russia also takes... Actually, Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus unite into the new Soviet Union. But it won't actually be called that, and it won't be communist. It's just going to be called, like, the Greater Eurasian Union or something. And also they're forced to leave, I think it's South Odessia and something else, like Abkhazia. Might be South Abkhazia and Odessia. Or I could be getting those names completely wrong. But either way, whatever they had over here in Georgia is going to be unoccupied. And I believe that is going to be it for this video. So, goodbye.